welcome to the Business, Economy and Innovation Committee. I'm Councillor James Lewis. I've replaced Councillor Pandor as chair of this committee, so I'm really pleased to be at my first meeting of the committee, and I look forward to working with you all. I'll just start off with the formalities at the top of the agenda. Are there any apologies for absence, please?
Apologies for absence have been received from Farah Butt, Councillor Sarah Courtney, Councillor Michael Graham, Deb Hetherington, Councillor Peter Kilbane, Barney Minor, Dr Peter O'Brien, Richard Paxman, Councillor Alex Rosshaw and Alan Williams, Chair.
Richard's just indicated his ear. Thank you. Thank you, Miles. Item 2, is there any declarations of disposable pecuniary interests? I'll ask members to highlight any, please. Sue, please.
Yes, for the University of Huddersfield, we're one of the awards in the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, item 11. So just wanted to log that.
Great, thank you. Are there any other declarations? I can't see any. Item 3 is exempt information, and there are no items with exempt information, so that's a dead easy item. Item 4, is everybody happy with the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of July, please? Take it everybody is happy with those. Happy with those minutes. Okay, I'm going to move on to the chair's update now, and I think as I'm new in this role, I'll just ask everybody to introduce themselves, please. Like I say, I'm Councillor James Lewis, leader of Leeds Council and chair of this committee.
Sarah Bowes, head of business.
Miles Larrington, Governance Services Officer.
Lisa Martin, Roundhay Ward, Leeds City Council.
Councillor Graham Turner, Cabinet Member for Regen and Finance.
Martin Stowe, Pro Vice Chancellor for Business Engagement and Enterprise at the University of Leeds.
Rich Paxman, I am here, CEO of Paxman Scalp Cooling.
Lee Viney, Regional Manager for Innovate UK.
Joshua Kazin, Policy Officer, Employment and Skills, West Yorkshire Combined Authority.
Patrick Bowes, Head of Research and Intelligence at the Combined Authority.
Jo Barham, Policy Manager at the Combined Authority.
Marianne Hewitt, Programme Development Lead at the Combined Authority.
Louise Allen, Programme Development Lead at the Combined Authority.
Alvinder Singh, Chief Executive of Kirklees College and representative of the West Yorkshire Combined Colleges Consortium.
Simon Langdale, Synthetech.
Sue Cook, Chief Exec of the 3M Buckley Innovation Centre at the University of Huddersfield.
Asma Iqbal, Partner at Chadwick Lawrence Listers. And I'm Sarah Eaton, Director of Strategy, Communications and Intelligence. I still have to look because it's day 14 of the Combined Authority, so that's why I'm looking down. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you and welcome, Sarah, who's new to the role and also stepping in for Felix, who is in the United States with the Mayor at the moment on the trade mission, as is Mandy Ridyard, who I know you all know from this board, who's been appointed as the Mayor's business advisor moving forward, an appointment I'm really excited about. And finally, after the meeting, Foresight will be presenting an update on the SME Investment Fund if people are able to stay on. So I know there's some problems with the trains, at the moment. So what I'm going to do with the agenda is the one item which is a key decision is item 12 on development and delivery. So I'm going to move that up. So we'll take that item straight away now. So understand if people are hi there. If people are wanting to head off early, we'll take the item with a key decision in first. So turning to item 12, it's an update on development and delivery, and I'll ask Louise Allen, please, to introduce the paper.
Thank you, Chair. This paper gives an overview of our programmes in the Combined Authority and regionally. They're in development and delivery. The main item that I want to draw your attention to is under our growth service provision. So in the paper, in Appendix 1, there's a full explanation of an opportunity to use £380,000 of gain share funding. And this is to deliver some pilot projects that will support our equality, diversity and inclusion ambitions at the Combined Authority. The aim is for 8 pilots to be commissioned, specialist organisations to expand our reach and businesses led by underrepresented groups. Officers have had conversations with some of our key contacts so far, and we'll be continuing this. And we've already had some innovative approaches put forward for this piece of work. And we'd like the committee to endorse this approach and the use of funds.
It's great. Thanks, Louise. Asma, would you like to come in, please, on this item?
Just to clarify, is my input the economic strategy development side of things, or with the event that we had, Joe, or is this separate to that? Sorry, I'm a bit confused. Okay, I'm not sure what I can add on this one.
Okay, all right, thank you. Would anybody else like to come out on this paper? Joe, please.
Yeah, just to comment, I think because we've changed the order around because of people needing to leave, so we were going to talk through the strategy and how that links to the opportunity for this funding pot, and so we'll be inviting Asma to talk about her input on that. So I think it's just because we've changed it around, we're going to sort of do the strategic case, and then this funding, it gives us an opportunity. So we will be covering that when we talk about the economic strategy update.
Thanks, Joe. Pavinda, please.
Just to say that I like the paper. I think you've spelt out the opportunity, and my question was, why wouldn't we do it? So.
Thank you. And Carl, please.
Thanks, Chair. Similarly, I think it's a great move forward. A lot of work was started last year. That's evoluted to this now. And it's important that we are seen to follow through on our aspirations all that time back. And not just do it for the sake of just doing something, but something meaningful and sustainable. So in terms of the conversations that have been taking place so far, Louise, you said that, conversations have taken place with stakeholders and interested parties already. Is that going to continue? What's the plan for moving things forward?
Yeah, so absolutely the plan is to keep engaging with our current members of this committee and other groups to progress that and set up some kind of working group to support some development of this. So we'll be
It's very important, Chair, that we ensure that this initiative kind of reaches all the parts that it's meant to reach, and not just easy, early, low fruit stuff. It's actually across the board, and that means that this engagement needs to be equivalently diverse. Yeah.
It's probably fair to say we've started the conversations, but we've just started them. This approval allows us to kind of proceed and progress and make sure we're talking to the right people and getting the right input into designing them.
Good. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, everyone. Is there anyone else who'd like to come on this paper, please? I don't see anybody else, so I'm going to turn to the recommendations on page 84, and I take it everybody's happy with those recommendations. That's great, and we'll move on to where we were going to start the agenda, which is item 6 and the economic update, please, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, just a sort of a overview of some of the key information that's in the report. Report looks at current macroeconomic situation, and I'll quickly run through some of the latest headlines on that. And also then talks about where we are with a range of indicators, particularly relating to the regional labour markets and the West Yorkshire labour market. The paper also touches on some of the results that we've got from the new West Yorkshire Business Survey. This is the B2B survey that used to be the Leeds City Region Business Survey, now focuses on the West Yorkshire geography. And also as well, in the paper as well, we touch on some of the key indicators which we will be publishing as part of State of the Region 2023, which touches on some of the kind of key metrics which sit within the committee's sort of policy remit. So particularly in the paper, we look at things like on progress on productivity, output, export performance, that kind of thing. So briefly, in terms of where we are with current macroeconomic situation, you're probably all aware of where we are with current inflation is at 6.7%. That's CPI inflation. It's been stuck at 6.7% for the last couple of months. So in August it was 6.7%, September 6.7%, and it's very, very little since July. It was 6.8% in July. Within that, of course, some quite good news. There's a range of different things happening, but we are seeing core inflation starting to come down a little bit. But more importantly, we're seeing headline food inflation starting to fall. So headline food inflation is starting to come down. it's worth saying that a lot of organisations, particularly the bank, are of the opinion that food inflation will remain high into the new year. So the bank, in their latest sort of inflation forecasts, are of the view that food inflation will still be around about 10% as we go into next year, but will fall then quite sharply into the middle of next year, along with overall inflation. Where we are with the interest rates, since the paper was published, the MPC has met again. They met on the 2nd of November. They made a decision to keep interest rates on hold at 5.25%. The decision was less close this time. In the previous sort of meeting, which I think is in October, they voted by I think 5-4 to keep rates on hold. That margin changed a little bit. It was 6-3. And I think when you read the transcripts of the notes from the MPC, they're of the opinion that they think that the labour market nationally is starting to loosen. That means there's less slack in the economy. That means there's slightly less concern about the transmission and the wage effects that are associated with that. And there's also a fair amount of anecdotal and official evidence as well to suggest that the overall rate of wage growth has started to peak as well. We're seeing that nationally, and we're seeing that locally. But it's pretty clear. I think they think now they've got the room to probably peg interest rates at 5.25%, although a lot of forecasters were suggesting it would nudge a bit higher. And in their overview, they were of the opinion that headline inflation, will fall pretty sharply into the middle of next year. So I think they're of the opinion that it'll be down to about 3.5% by June next year. A lot of things have to happen. There are a number of assumptions. And one thing they're not entirely clear about is, there are still sort of what they call so-called upside risks. We just don't know what the impact of some of the current geopolitical situation will be on and there's a certain amount of volatility at the moment in the energy markets, particularly for oil prices, less so for gas prices. In terms of what we know about economic growth, well, the kind of data that we've got at the moment from government relates to Q2 GDP growth, which was 0.2% in Q2. The revisions that they've published as well show that growth in the first quarter of this year was stronger than everybody had expected. Originally, when they published their estimates, it was something like 0.1% growth in the first quarter of this year. They then revised that to 0.3%. So there is some suggestion that we are seeing stronger growth, particularly in June, July, than had previously been expected. But I think overall, when you actually look at the kind of numbers, I don't think many people are expecting sort of overall GDP growth, this year to be much above 1%, if it is above 1%. And obviously, we all need to bear in mind as well that we have an autumn statement that's still scheduled for the 22nd of this month, and OBR will be publishing a raft of information, and we'll have their view alongside the Bank of England's view in terms of what the prospects are for growth next year. But I think many forecasters believe that we're going to see growth that's going to be less strong next year in 2024 than this year, so potentially growth of less than 1% in 24. Moving on to what we know about sort of worth highlighting, the way that government calculates GDP and the size of the economy is changing. So the government produced some estimates based on effectively they're changing the accounting approach they use to how we estimate the size of the economy. And the key message to come out of that piece of work when they published it was that the UK came out of recovered its pre-pandemic economic growth baseline much more quickly than anybody thought. So it was previously thought, using the current methodology, that we were still below the pre-pandemic size of the economy. Using the new approach, that indicates that we surpassed that in Q3, I think 2021. The problem is at the moment we don't know what that means here at the local level. So they won't publish the information we need to work out what that means for the West Yorkshire economy until next year. So it's going to be a little bit difficult for us. All we know is that the economy in West Yorkshire, along with other parts of the country, at a local level, was probably in a better position than we thought, based upon official statistics. But we won't know the scale of that and how well West Yorkshire's done relative to other parts of the country. As you've seen in the State of the Region report, and we'll touch on that as well, we have done reasonably well. If you look at things like sort of GVA, output, productivity, we bounced back when we came out of the pandemic, the health crisis, a little bit more quickly than other parts of the country. So it'll be interesting to see how that unwinds as well when those statistics are published. Very, very, very quickly, a range of regional data in there. I think the key message from that, particularly focused on the labour market, is that we are beginning to see West Yorkshire labour market beginning to soften, and that's the rate of employment growth is beginning to ease off, or just a little bit, and the rate of claimant unemployment is beginning to increase again just a little bit. It's not significant, but it's consistent with a national trend there. In terms of the West Yorkshire Business Survey, we're going to publish that very shortly. We just wanted to reprise some of the sort of key results from the West Yorkshire Business Survey. This is a sort of a principal survey where we talk to businesses every year. It's a B2B survey. We talk to all parts of the economy, and it's really a sort of a leading indicator to the survey. We use that information as part of our monitoring, as part of contribution to the work on strategy, and Joel will talk about that in the strategy paper. And what that does tell us is that the businesses are, hopefully, which is good news, are more confident than they were last year when we undertook the survey. So, you know, a much more sort of robust views that the economy has stabilised this year, much more clarity, there's great certainty in the business environment. Obviously, some of the key messages that when you get into the detail are interesting. A lot of concern about, for instance, vacancies, being able to recruit, retain people with the right skill sets. A lot of businesses, and particularly medium-sized businesses, talk a great deal about that. I guess that's not unsurprising to a certain extent because we've had a very strong labour market, and that labour market is beginning, as I mentioned, to soften a little bit. Also as well within there, so we will be publishing those results, and we just want to sort of reprise some of those sort of headline results. And just also to mention as well, also State of the Region 2023, we have published sort of, we haven't yet published that document, but we wanted to do was to share with the committee some of the kind of analysis that will be going into that particularly relates to things like output, productivity, GVA, and just sort of give some contextual information to the committee about how we're performing. Obviously with State of the Region, because it's our primary monitoring document, we're using official statistics, so quite often you're reflecting on what's happened maybe a year or 18 months ago, but it's still incredibly useful, and it does tell us that you look at, for instance, overall GVA growth. We came out of the health crisis more strongly than other areas, so overall GVA growth grew much more strongly. Output per head grew more strongly, but I think the key contextual message here is that gap with the rest of the country is still there, and it's still structural, and it's still quite significant. And all the information there that relates to exporting and performance. Again, we as you might imagine, exports, and particularly services and goods exports, obviously took a hit during the health crisis. They recovered quite strongly. Again, a similar pattern in West Yorkshire. We've probably recovered a little bit more quickly. We bounced back a bit more quickly than other areas, but still some quite fundamental structural sort of issues there. So if you look at the value of exports, for instance, by goods and services, and then you express them as a function of the overall size of the economy, we still lag most other areas in the UK as well. So it's a long-running structural issue that we've had as in performance terms as an economy. So there's a range of information in there. I'm conscious I've sailed through a great deal, and just back to Chair, really, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Are there any questions or comments from the committee, please? Martin, please.
Yeah, with interest, I noticed 2.6, it talks about a 12% increase in the number of startups in West Yorkshire compared with last year. Could you comment on that? And I'm assuming that's based on what, company house data?
It is based on company's house data. Yeah, we use a system called FAME, Financial Analysis Made Easy. So it is partly based on company's house data, and it's also based on some information that they also included it. And I think, we've noticed that trend a little bit, and there does appear to be sort of at the local level as well, it does appear to be a little bit more robust growth in that business startup in places like Bradford, for instance. So there's some local variation to it, and there's some local themes to it that particularly come out quite strongly, I think, for Bradford.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Patrick. Does anybody else want to come in or comment on this report, please? I don't see anybody, so thank you for the update, Patrick. The recommendation is that we note the report, and we've done that. So with that, we'll move on to item 7 in the economic strategy update, please, Jo.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I'm going to update the committee on the progress we've made on the economic strategy since the last meeting in July. So I think it's worth reiterating at this point the context that we're doing this work in, and that is to reflect the strength and priorities we have on EDI, which links back to what we were just discussing on the opportunity for the pilot project on net zero and sustainability, and on inclusive growth. And these have all been set out in the West Yorkshire Plan, which was published early this year. And so what this work we're doing now is to build on that plan and apply all of the evidence that we're gathering, all of the consultation feedback that we're collecting, to set out the actions that we want to take to achieve those vision and those missions that were set out in the plan. So in terms of an update then, so the key actions since the last meeting took place, we have published and commissioned a piece of research on sector strengths in West Yorkshire. This is to understand where the high growth opportunities we have in the economy, and in particular around net zero, so what the business opportunities are there, what are those economic opportunities for businesses in West Yorkshire. We've published a consultation questionnaire, so there is a link in the paper. If people haven't completed that already, I'd be very grateful if you could share that with your networks and groups. We've had about 160 responses at the last count, but we do want to get more, so yeah, really would encourage that to be shared and completed as widely as possible. We've been working with Yorkshire universities and a network called YPERN, which is a regional network which has some funding specifically to work with policymakers to help us to access some of the academic excellence that we know we have in the region, and to help us translate that into policy and projects. So we put out a call for evidence through the YPERN network earlier this year, and that has just concluded. So we're looking through that at the moment, and some really interesting insights and findings on 3 areas that we identified that we wanted to find out more about. So that was on childcare, the impact that has on the West Yorkshire economy, on the informal economy in West Yorkshire and what that means for an inclusive economy, and then on the future of work. So there's really interesting studies that are coming through that call for evidence, and actually some interesting links across those 3 areas. So we're looking through that, and I think clearly one call for evidence isn't going to provide us with all the answers to that, but it's really important about developing some of those relationships and those partnerships that we can build on and help us not only develop this strategy, but as we go on to deliver it, to work closely with those academics. So that's been a really positive exercise. We've been having a number of conversations with different groups on different thematic aspects of the strategy. We've had a rural one, we've had some local conversations with the local authorities, we've spoken to business rep bodies and universities. We held a really great event in Bradford that ASMA facilitated for us. Some really interesting insights there about our ways of working, about celebrating all sectors of our economy, about really deepening our engagement and the ways that we can bring that out in the strategy. So we are going to build on that event with further events. So we're speaking to other stakeholders, so talking to Carl about a follow-up event on that, and this can really link to the item we talked about at the start on equality, diversity, inclusion, and as well as aligning it with our strategy, but letting that filter down into pilot projects to start to test out some ideas and new approaches and use of ways of working. So that will be going on alongside our strategy development work. So there's the paper sets out some of the other key areas of work and development that we're doing on the strategy, but broadly speaking, so we're continuing going on with the evidence and the consultation, and that's going to take us up to the end of the year, and then we're going to look to start drafting some priorities and working with different stakeholders to do that. And so then at that point we will have a document to share back around the committee and those groups for further consultation and engagement, and to iterate that as necessary. And then we're hoping in the sort of late spring, early summer to have a document that we can agree for sign off. So I'll pause there, but happy to take any questions or comments on the approach. And perhaps actually if Asma and Carl, who are at the event in Bradford, might want to give their reflection, that would be really welcome as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Asma, would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, so just to put it into context, I was approached by West Yorkshire Combined Authority in my capacity as the LEP inclusivity champion on the private sector to add some value to the economic strategy from an EDI perspective, and I felt it just wasn't my job alone. And we sat down, Lorna, Josh, and decided that actually what we needed was us to go to the heart of the community where the businesses are and the needs are, and just do something a bit differently this time. So I spoke with our fellow board member Cameron Rashid. We hosted it at the Impact Hub, which I think is a real statement for us. because it was seen as us actually caring and going into the businesses that matter and listening to their needs. So I think that was a great plus. People are really, really pleased that we did that. I put together a list of key businesses. Joe and Josh and Lorna also participated in that list. We didn't just stick to businesses. We thought we wanted to be integrated. We went to social enterprise groups. We also had some charitable representation. So every aspect of the business economic input that is represented, we made sure somebody was available. We were up to capacity for the event. I had to turn people away, so it shows that there was clearly a demand, but the venue could only hold up to a certain number. It was a great opportunity for Felix to kind of showcase his presence, and I think that was a great plus for us. Mandy isn't here today, she was there, and I think her input was absolutely brilliant. Carl, your input was valued, you were there as well, so it was great for me to have that level of support as well, because we were all sort of singing from the same hymn sheet, and it matters, you know, we were there for some numbers. But the key questions that were asked around the table centred around, from an EDI, ethnic minority business perspective, what is working well in the economy, what can be done differently, and what are the challenges? You know, let's have an open, candid conversation around the changes that are needed. We see policies written, but actually, can we talk about what the challenges are, and can we put in place mechanisms that we overcome these challenges? We had a really good interactive session. Great points were made. Joe's followed up with a few of those, and we're continuing to engage out with Joe. We need to set up a few workshops, maybe one-to-ones, and try and progress those, because we can lose credibility as well if we have gone to the trouble of hosting that and listening to people and then not following up. So I'm keen to see what happens there. The key concerns that were highlighted, I'll just briefly touch upon them. I know we're going to go through them. Lack of visibility of us, really, and what we're doing. From an ethnic minority business perspective, lack of shouting about the successes of those businesses. Maybe it was two ways. We don't know about them, and we'd like to know about them. We'd like to showcase and highlight their success. A little bit of communication issues. They felt there was communication issues. We don't actually see a face behind the email that's sent, gets lost in the ethos, and that loses credibility. A bit of an us and them scenario creeps in at times, and how do we overcome that? And then other stakeholders that were there. So we had representation from the Chamber of Commerce, FSB. It was, how do we have more of a collaborative approach so that we all are saying the same thing? And with the economic strategy, should we all have an input? Because it's important to all of the stakeholders. And there was a little bit of discussions have started, but they've dwindled. So just bringing everybody back and saying, yep, this is how it impacts, this is your input, and following that through. Since after the event, had real good progress. People have individually contacted Felix and various members of the team with further, which is what we wanted. We wanted to start the engagement piece, and we've got that. We've done the time to change a report implementation at Bradford University since then, and Lorna's been involved with me in that. And then there's been the Western North Yorkshire Chamber of Commerce Property Forum. Again, these discussions have developed into that. So I think it's all relevant that started with that session and has progressed into more meaningful discussions after that.
Thank you. Carl would like to come in, please.
Chair, I wasn't really expecting to say anything, so it'd be a bit off the cuff. But without patronising the team, I'd like to really say that I think the team, Joe, Lorna, Josh, and Felix, you did a fantastic job alongside Asma, but as an executive team, because people that they were in that room, and many of us have been around these economic strategy and planning processes before. In a room like that, you have the challenge of being able to articulate information to people with different levels of understanding, and that's always a challenge, isn't it? You know. And I think the team did exceptionally well, brought the macro down to the kind of needs on the ground, communicated that, including identifying some of those challenges that we face as a region, and importantly touched on some of the things about learning from the past, and that's very important, because there was also a comment made around, well, should we have a regional economic strategy, or why should there be district level economic strategies at a local authority level. And there'll be arguments for and against that. And each economic strategy, I believe, has a relevance and a uniqueness. And the role of us, led by yourself, the chair, is that we have to ensure that we incorporate the district level stuff at a regional level in a way that is meaningful and appropriate. And I think, so I want to really extend that to the team, because a lot of this stuff is nothing more than organisational cultural change, as we know. And when we have, within the kind of delivery ongoing of what we're trying to achieve, a level of understanding and confidence in the people leading that, that's a big part of it, because it shows a willingness to change the way that we behave as organisations and how we do things. And it's a massive plus. And even when Felix was introduced, people said, oh, it's good to have Felix. Felix is new. Felix is new in the role, but Felix is not new on this topic. You follow me? And so there's a lot for us to benefit from in terms of past experiences over the years, and where, we avoid elephant traps and not just repeating the same mistakes, and doing something in a very innovative way, and setting good practice. And I'm just saying all that. It sounds quite, jargonistic, but it's very important. It's because it's not just about time to change is there. We own the North Star report, which was commissioned by the Combined Authority with its own set of recommendations, which some of them are unique. And we have to bring everything, and the time to change, and we've cut down half the Amazon with these research. We've cut down half of the Amazon over the little period of time so they're not telling us much new, but it's how you apply what it's telling you, and that's the difference. And I feel that there is a commitment from the Combined Authority since last year, when it commissioned the North Star report, to do things properly and appropriately for the community at large and the diverse needs out there. So hats off to the executive team, 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for your support for the team. Would anybody else like to come in this report, please? Sue, please.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Joe, you mentioned about the sector report, the sector piece. Just wondered if there are any early insights from that, whether there are any further conversations to be had. I'm thinking also about the read across to pieces of work that are ongoing, like the investment zones, to make sure we've got a bit of a good join up in relation to particularly health sector, is where we've got some interests. Thank you.
Yes, sort of in the too early stages for any insights, but what we've been really clear about this is that there is a lot of information that's already out there, and so a part of this work is joining together a number of reports that we've already got on different aspects to make sure that we're not duplicating anything, but there is a bit of a gap on some particular elements and sort of growth opportunities. So we're feeding in a whole range of intelligence to the consultants that are doing that to make sure that we do join that up. And I think certainly by the next committee we'll be able to feed back some of the high level findings from that, so we can put that on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just follow up on that in terms of thinking particularly about the university insight and contribution to that, because we've just started a piece of work really trying to identify nationally or internationally leading areas of research and innovation within the University of Leeds. I'm sure Huddersfield, Bradford are doing something very similar as well. So just thinking about how we're connecting that up and making sure that we're basically feeding that into this piece of work.
That'd be really welcome. I had a conversation with Mark Etoff about this, so we're going to join across those agendas, so we'll definitely pick that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, please.
I'll just echo what Sue said with regards to the innovation zone, investment zone, and the getting the feedback from the health tech cluster as well. I think is really important, really diverse group. And just on the Bradford Institute for Health Research and the Scientific Advisory Group, that sounds great. Again, if that can be fed back into the health tech cluster group and the findings out of that, try to drive, where these products, technology, services should go in the future. I'm sure it's all been done, but thank you.
Yeah, definitely. That's another group where we're aware there's a lot of activity related to it, so we really want to make sure that's not duplicating anything, but adding value. So trying to find that spot where, we need to add that up. Yeah. So.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to come in on this paper, please? I don't see anybody else coming in. I'm going to look at the recommendations. It says we note the contents of the report and provide feedback, which we have. So take it everybody's happy to agree those recommendations, and thank you everybody for the feedback there. And we'll move on to item 8, the digital blueprint update, which is Mariana, please.
Thank you. This paper is about the digital blueprint, which considers how digital enables the economy. We're highlighting this because within the wider economy and therefore the economic strategy, the digital sector is a crucial part. Having a specific plan for this sector will help us boost productivity, reduce skills gaps and shortages, improve our digital connectivity, make it attractive for investment, and make residents' lives better. It's worth saying we had another strategy on digital, the digital framework, which was written in 2018. And we've acted on those ambitions and delivered progress for the region there. But it's a different world now. We've had the COVID lockdowns, we've had the cost of living crisis, the cost of doing business crisis, and really huge advances in technology. So we know West Yorkshire's got some really significant strengths in digital, and we want to leverage those in a coherent way to help create maximum benefits for the region. So we've identified an approach, which I'll explain with the help of visuals. Next slide, please. So, here's comment. The pink robot is from the Bradford Science Museum, if anyone was wondering. It would be in the digital paper that we have. So think of these as the horizontals for the approach. These are like the foundations of our blueprint. These are the things that we most want to impact in a positive way. So we have place, people and education, and businesses and organisations. And then next slide, please, hopefully. Possibly not. We're going for a manual method here, thank you. So we've had the horizontals, and then these are the verticals. So think of these as the agents that will bring about the change. And we've created these by analysing kind of what was most important or what was trending through previous consultations and through our desk research. And this approach has been chosen, actually thanks to Paul Price's very generous guidance. Because the digital agenda is so broad, there are going to be inevitable gaps. But next slide, please, if I dare. This is the last one. What we're going to do, and you'll see in a second, is we're going to interweave the horizontals with the verticals so that we know that we've captured the most important kind of focal elements in those verticals for West Yorkshire, whilst acknowledging the limitations of such a broad policy. No, not happening. You have to just imagine that.
It's in the packet.
It is in the packet, so it's the appendix. So we held a private sector workshop in September, which helped edit and confirm these verticals. So thank you to those of you who attended that especially. And all feedback would be welcome on this approach from the committee ahead of us coming to present a first draft in the new year. Oh, there it is. It was worth the wait.
Thank you, Marianne. Would anybody like to come in from the committee, please, on this item? I'll start with Sue, please.
Thank you. It's good to see mentioned, Marianne, in the paper on page 32 that AI was name checked, and I wondered if in the strategy diagram, is that part of dynamism in tech? Good, because we're definitely seeing a load of interest in this from the businesses that come into the university to meet with our academics to talk about, you know, what's going on. It seems to be the theme or the topic of the year, so I definitely think we should be focusing quite a bit on that and making sure our companies are, you know, ahead of the game in putting that to good use for themselves. Thank you.
somebody over here wanted to come in. Richard, please.
I was just going to draw back again to the investment zone and digital health. So, and it probably again is thought about, but it's making sure it's in the narrative and stuff. So we keep thinking about it because it's a key focus.
Thank you, Martin, please.
Yeah, just looking at the diagram before in terms of the verticals. So those verticals are change agents. I guess, it'd be helpful just to have a little bit of background in terms of how you came up with those verticals, and are those all really change agents? And you're sort of just understanding those more in terms of the definition of those, because there's quite a wide variety of different areas there. And my second point was about, you mentioned people and education. And I think that's really significant, and I do wonder whether that needs to be captured here in terms of our ability, based on colleges, universities, the education element of this, I think is really, really important in terms of upskilling, reskilling workforce.
Thank you, Marianne, please.
Thank you. Just to address what Sue was saying about AI, it's a massive piece of it. We could have called the vertical AI. We were thinking about where to put it, and then in the end we put it in kind of tech dynamism, or we might call it capitalising on advanced technologies. But yeah, even last week's Bletchley Summit is just showing that it's coming up in almost every conversation about tech. So yeah, that will be covered. With the investment zone as well, as Joe said, we're going to make sure these align for definite. The change agents, so I'll explain them a bit more and explain sort of what's in them. So the first one, if you think of that as like the showcase piece, so this is kind of our sales pitch in West Yorkshire, why we're great. The next one, like I said, it's looking at immersive tech, AI, quantum, and that will include, because of the three horizontals, like the high level skills, then subsector strengths in businesses, and then the role of smart cities and innovation within that. Inclusion, fairly self-explanatory, but that's about tackling digital exclusion and having access to social tariffs, broadband, etc. Working really closely with community organisations there. Then data, we've put quite a lot into this one, so cybersecurity, security of networks, open data, and then ethics as well, are quite a big one. On hybrid digitisation, we could have also called this like day-to-day digital services. This is about how digital makes daily life easier for West Yorkshire residents, and making services more accessible without removing the need for humans. So thinking of the ticketing officers. Then sustainability and net zero, so how digital is helping us work towards those goals. And then convening at the end, that's kind of the concluding vertical about the collaborative nature of West Yorkshire and kind of what the combined authority's role is and what the role and responsibilities of other agents are in that. Thinking particularly about kind of broadband providers and infrastructure within that. Yeah, so does that answer that question?
Yeah, that's really helpful actually, and that sort of brings it to life. The actual vertical on the left-hand side in terms of why Yorkshire is a great place for digital, all of this achieves that though. So you could almost say that is the overall sort of goal in terms of what we're trying to achieve through this. But no, that's really helpful. I think just understanding the way you've scoped each of those has definitely helped, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Are there any more questions or comments on this item, please? Lee, please.
Yeah, just to say that we have an AI and data team. We've got experts in immersive technology in all those areas that you'll be considering. So if there's anything we can do to bring that to help with this work, just let me know and we'll make that happen.
Okay, Palvinder, please.
Just hopefully a few helpful observations. So in terms of theory of change, the verticals are things which you've got direct lever controls over. And your horizontals, so the diagram that you've used in cross matrix is cultural. And that's the cultural impact that you want to make. So in terms of what you're showcasing there, that's the theory behind it. So my question therefore then is, how confident are you with the lever of change of the direct controls of the verticals, and then what are the vehicles for the cross-matrix cultural change for place, people and business? And that's just maybe something to think about. And then my final observation is there's no reference in here to the up-and-coming election, and if there is anything in here that you want to try and influence with regards to manifestos. So manifestos are being drawn up as we talk now, and party conferences have happened, and in terms of the skills agenda and the education agenda, you know, there has been talk about the LEPs, and there has been talk about LSIPs, and there has been talk, not consistently, and there has been talk about AI, but not consistently. So different parties have got different agendas on it. So I just wonder whether that needs to be considered as well as you are developing this thinking.
Ariane, please.
Thank you. I won't answer those now, but I will take them away. Thank you.
Certainly as a combined authority, it's really our intention to influence where we can parties' manifestos for the next general election, both in terms of the things we've been talking about today, in being clear around having a strong national policy framework for delivering, but also in terms of our key role in West Yorkshire in doing that, and where we can actively play a part in making making a lot of this happen. So it's something certainly from us as combined authority members, a really important thing around making sure we've got those, like I say, those frameworks for the sectors, for devolution, and for our role as combined authority and local councils in that as well. Okay, does anybody else want to come in on the digital blueprint update, please, or shall I turn to the recommendations that we note the contents, provide feedback, and endorse the direction that we're heading in with this one? I think there's quite a lot of comments for you there, Marianne, to take on board and look at. Thank you, everybody, for those. So if we're happy with those recommendations, then we'll move on to item 9, which is employment skills update. And is this you, Josh, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll forego the slides for everyone's benefit, but I would like to start with some of the long-term evidence base regarding employment and skills in West Yorkshire. And if you turn to Appendix 1, this has more detail around this. The region faces a skills shortage in key areas. We know this affects business productivity across the region and significantly impacts the ability to recruit. Patrick referenced this in his earlier paper as being something that is, of course, keenly felt by our SME community. We know there are potential misalignments between the skills held by individuals and those required in the current labour market. And as Patrick referenced as well, employment growth in the region has levelled off with the claimant count rising, so that's the number of people claiming universal credit. There's a rise in the number of people considered economically inactive, so people with no employment and not looking for employment, and part of that is due to rising instances of long-term ill health or disability. And of course, those from disadvantaged groups are most likely to experience economic inactivity and or unemployment. Matching skills required by employers to the capabilities and future capabilities of the labour market is key to the productive functioning of the economy. And as such, there is a need to intervene to support businesses and individuals through vacancy matching in the current labour pool. So that would be done through employment support programmes, and to build future talent pipelines that are equipped with relevant skills. So that would be kind of through your career support mechanisms. In terms of kind of current activity in the employment and skills area with combined authority and partners, Appendix 2 does give a very good overview of this kind of activity being delivered by the CA and partners. In the interest of time, I'll just draw out some relevant highlights for this committee. The West Yorkshire Careers Hub, which works closely with local employers to support 185 schools and colleges to make progress with regards to careers education. The Employment West Yorkshire programme delivered with our local authority partners, which will support 7,700 people of all ages between April 2023 and March 2025 to improve their labour market outcomes, and the support that's been given to businesses to access over £5 million of unspent apprenticeship levy funding through our levy transfer programme. So some very good progress in a lot of kind of key areas for employment and skills across the combined authority. And we want to continue to be ambitious with our plans to meet key labour market challenges like the ones highlighted at the start of this presentation and improve outcomes for our residents, particularly with regards to accessing quality careers provision and employment support provision as well. As such, the combined authority and partners are co-developing 2 blueprints with partners and stakeholders, an all-age careers blueprint and an employment support blueprint. Both blueprints will support Mission 1 of the West Yorkshire Plan and will ensure strong alignment to the emerging economic strategy that's part of Joe's work. And the blueprints are in part intended to ready West Yorkshire for further devolution of skills, powers and funding. Regarding the employment support blueprint, this will set out the current context and challenges related to employment support in West Yorkshire, talk about developing system improvements to ensure residents and employers are best supported through this system, and will also support the combined authority and partners to identify opportunities for partnership working with commissioning bodies in central government as well. And as a broad overview, the blueprint will focus on 4 key topic areas. Those are work and health, youth unemployment, examining current national provision with regards to the Benefits and Job Centre Plus system, and general system improvements on wraparound employment support services. Regarding the all-age careers blueprint, this will build primarily on the principles of the LGA's work local model, for those of you that are familiar with that, and will take a whole life approach focusing on transition points for individuals at which career support may be most needed. So, people leaving education or training, those wishing to upskill or change careers at points in their lives. The Institute for Employment Studies have been commissioned to lead the development of this blueprint. Obviously, that's an incredibly exciting proposition for us, given their stature in this type of work. And an interim report will be available soon, and I'm very happy to share that with members when that becomes available as well. Just to reiterate, in the creation of both of these key pieces of strategy, we really want to recognise the importance of employer-focused networks and employers. This isn't just about individuals, this is about our business community as well. We must ensure through these plans that our businesses have access to a steady supply of talent, and obviously that our residents have access to meaningful jobs and careers. Members will have received an invite to a workshop on the 7th of December to kind of go through these blueprints in further detail, to test some of the emerging thinking, and obviously to give wider opportunities for members to steer on this agenda. So I really welcome that on the 7th. And I want to reiterate as well the co-creation and co-development aspects of these pieces of work with our partners in local authorities, with our education partners and our wider stakeholder groups as well. There is a public consultation that will go live for both blueprints imminently. I believe that will be in the next 2 weeks. So once you've filled out your economic strategy consultation, you can go straight ahead to doing the one for the employment support and careers work. And obviously we welcome opportunities to hear the voice of our communities and beyond with regards to these pieces of work. So if you are part of other networks that you think should be inputting into this, please do approach myself and my colleague Annika, who unfortunately can't be here today, and we'll have a further conversation with you about that. I'd like to pause and hand back to the chair at this point.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Josh, for that introduction update on the paper. Could we could I ask if anybody from the committee wants to comment on what Josh has said in the paper in front of us, please? Sue, please.
Thank you. Yes, it's really good to see. I'm particularly pleased to see how the careers work is developing and future goals going from strength to strength. And I just wanted to mention an opportunity to join up once again on something that we're doing in Kirklees. This is a joint effort with the Kirklees Council, with some of Councillor Turner's colleagues on the Kirklees Top 100 Companies Initiative, which we've published for the 4th year this time, and we're doing another careers edition of that at the end of November, and we did feature future goals in that brochure last year, so that was with Kirsty Brobin. So if the team wants to do that again and get that message out, it goes to all the high schools in Kirklees and careers advisors, teachers, and we'd like to invite the enterprise coordinators and enterprise advisor volunteers as well to that event at the end of November. So if we can do anything through your team to join those things up, we would love to. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Richard, please.
just say I'm actually an enterprise advisor for one of our local schools, and it's a brilliant program, and we get so much fulfilment out of actually delivering it. But I just wish more companies would get involved, and I think we have a job to support that and get people really engaged with the community. Yeah, it's fab. We're lucky. However, High is already probably reasonably well looked after with where it's situated, but definitely more to do in that area. So yeah, it's great. And Future Goals is fab as well.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come in, please? Josh, please.
Yeah, just to respond to that, Sue, absolutely. Let's talk about that event. That sounds wonderful. And Richard, yeah, absolutely. Your contribution in those networks has been fantastic, and it's something we want to continue in kind of having those opportunities for local organisations to speak about the work they do and use that to influence kind of the supply of skills and talent. That's a key part of this agenda. So thank you.
Thank you. If nobody else wants to come in, Lee, please.
I'm just wondering how we link this back to the Innovate UK Local Action Plan. There is an action in there to jointly work on understanding the innovation skills gap, so I'd be interested to take that conversation forward after this.
Thank you. Josh, please.
Yeah, happy to pick that up with you, Lee. That sounds really interesting.
Great, thank you. I don't see anybody else wanting to come in, so I'm going to turn to the recommendations that we note the contents of the report and the development of the 2 blueprints. Take it everybody's happy with those recommendations, so we will move on to item 10, innovation, please, Sarah.
Thank you. So this is just an update on some of the innovation activity that is taking place in the region currently. The first area is around investment zones. Investment zones, just as a bit of a recap, were announced in the spring budget. West Yorkshire was announcing one of those investment zones, up to £80 million of investment in a sector of our choosing. Through extensive discussions and conversations with a range of partners, we settled on a combination of sectors, which is health and life sciences, digital, and then that really key intersection in the middle around digital health. The really important point about these investment zones, as opposed to previous ones, is that these are in collaboration with our university sector, and for West Yorkshire that provides a significant opportunity given the strength of that sector for West Yorkshire. So we're currently working through the development of our investment zone proposal with government. There's a series of gateways we have to go through, and right now we're up to the stage of starting to think about interventions. So at the next meeting we'll come back with some fully formed proposals, and in the meantime, before then, we're going to have some more consultation, discussion, deep dives around what those interventions look like and how we need to shape them and deliver them going forwards. The second opportunity that we're working on at the minute is around the West Yorkshire Health Tech Launchpad, and this is another focus on health innovation. We were successfully announced as a launchpad by Innovate UK, one of only 8 awarded across the country, and this is to provide up to £7.5 million of Innovate UK investment into health innovation businesses and businesses that work in that space or want to work in that space in the region. So it's a fantastic complementary to the investment zone opportunity. It's also, I think, a strong indicator of the culmination of the partnership working we've been developing over a number of years around health innovation in the region. Richard's been leading our health tech group. Fantastic collaboration across the whole region around this agenda from both an economic growth potential perspective and the benefits that we can get into the health system around patient outcomes. And also it's a great indicator of the work we started a long time ago with Innovate UK around this partnership working and the development of that over the years that we have been. It was a competitive process, but we've been successfully awarded. And then lastly, I just wanted to point out that next week is the West Yorkshire Innovation Festival, the 3rd Innovation Festival. We've got innovation activities, events taking place across the whole region. We've got a fantastic flagship event taking place at Dean Clough in Halifax with Innovate UK, our Innovate UK local event. Great lineup as part of that and all the other events. It really is a chance to celebrate innovation in the region, to shout loudly about some of the fantastic businesses we've got, the fantastic assets we've got across the university sector and beyond, and really put ourselves on the map. We've got some really strong numbers in terms of sign-ups for all the events, and it's growing steadily year on year, so it feels like it's having a bit of an impact. We're gaining a bit of traction and profile as we move on through the years. So hopefully next time we come back we'll be able to report on some of the successful events we've had and the impact we've been able to deliver.
Thank you, Sarah. Would anybody like to come in on this paper, please, or the items in it. Sue, please.
Yes, just to echo what Sarah said about the Innovation Festival Week, we've got an event launching our health innovation project that I mentioned earlier with the Mayor on Wednesday in Huddersfield, so we're very excited about that. We've got 70 odd businesses, people signed up, and really looking forward to the buzz that's going to create next week around all these things. So thank you very much for organising it, and we're glad to play our part.
Thank you, Sue. Richard, please.
Yeah, just to add on to what's been said, but there's some fantastic things going on with the health tech side of things. There's a couple of other funding and grants being launched as well. There's the place-based impact acceleration account for med technologies. Can't speak. Apologies. It's been a long week. Through University of Leeds, and then there's another group that's been awarded some additional funding or extension of funding, which is the let me just find this. I thought I'd be more prepared, but not obviously. I will find it. Sorry, I just had it a minute ago. Apologies. It used to be the mix, but it, again, just more health tech related funding, which means I think really supporting the cluster and the momentum we're seeing with the investment zones and the other funding available. So congratulations to all the people that have been involved and continue to be involved.
Thank you, Richard. Carl, please.
Just a quick one, Chair, because these events and festivals take me by surprise. Because it's next week and then it's tomorrow. Is it possible we can get a calendar of events, please, of a range of things that we actually are involved in as a combined authority? Is that all right?
I think that's a really good idea, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
and then we can put people like me, lastminute.com. Is that all right? Thanks.
Thanks, Carl. It's a great idea. Martin, please.
Just a quick question about the investment zone, actually, and the timing and the expectations around that, because with the autumn statement coming up, do we expect an announcement aligned with the autumn statement for West Yorkshire, or do you think it's going to be after that, Sarah?
We're currently in active discussions about that, whether it's going to be aligned to the autumn statement or in advance of it, and that's literally right now we're in those discussions, so we'll be able to update you soon.
Thank you, Sarah. Does anybody else want to comment on this item, please? I don't see anybody else, so I'm going to turn to the recommendation that we note progress, which I think we have done, so it's take everybody's happy with that, and move on to item 11, which is UK SPF Pillar 2 update, please, Louise.
Thanks, Chair. So just to give a bit of a reminder on UK Shared Prosperity Fund, earlier this year there were 3 open calls that were put out under 3 themes that totalled investment of £11.8 million under Pillar 2 supporting local business. The themes were export, alternative business models and innovation for business growth and resilience. And that was following consultation with our key stakeholders to come up with what those 3 calls should be. An overview of each of the projects with a bit of blurb about what the objectives are and the outputs and outcomes of each are in Appendix 1. And so all projects are now contracted with and in sort of a mobilisation stage with staff recruitment and comms plans being put in place. And all projects will be completed by the end of March 2025. Officers in the Combined Authorities business teams are working closely with each of the projects to ensure that they're integrated into the ecosystem, avoiding duplication and making sure that they complement other things that are happening at the moment, so investment zones, etc. Happy to take any questions about the project.
Thanks, Louise. Are there any questions from the committee on this item, please? I don't see anybody, so I'll move straight to the recommendations then, that we note the contents and note the projects that are chosen to go. I take everybody's happy with those recommendations. That's great. So that was item 11 we've already done. Item 12, so we're just on to the date of the next meeting, which is the 31st of January, which brings us to the end of the formal meeting. Thank you, everybody.